You've spent the last 8 to 12 weeks on prep for your bodybuilding show. Now it comes down to the last week and you're thinking, what next? What do I do now? You know peak week is absolutely critical for nailing your look on show day, but you have no idea how to go about it. Especially as a natural, all the information out there is super tricky to navigate, and the last thing you want to do is mess this up after all those weeks of hard work and dedication. Fortunately, I'm making this video because I wish there was a video like this when I was going into my peak week for my bodybuilding show. I'm going to give you the step-by-step blueprint to nailing your peak week and coming in as best as you can on show day. Let's do it. From training to nutrition and everything in between, we'll be covering all the bases, including my super secret, especially special pump product to help you get the sickest pump of your life when you're backstage pumping up. Stick around, I'll be sharing that later on. First things first, let's talk about training. If your show's on Saturday, you want to keep training normally up until about Thursday. Earlier in the week, you should be training as usual, except maybe not as heavy as you're used to, because the goal is not to set any PRs during this week, and the last thing you want to do is get injured. Stick to your normal split. However, in most situations, Thursday would be the last day I would consider training, and I would make that a light upper body day at most. You can do cardio as well, but the idea is not to get too fatigued to the point where it might roll over into your show day. Friday, you want to rest completely. Stay off the weights, stay off the cardio, and just rest. Give your body a chance to recover so you can make the most out of your pump-up routine, which we're about to get into. Now let's dive into nutrition, which is really the defining factor in this whole process. You've probably heard the term carb loading, which means eating a lot of carbs to replenish your body when it's in a depleted state, so that your body takes those carbs and immediately puts them to work. Especially if you've been dieting hard, this can result in a nasty pump, but you have to do it right. There are a couple ways to go about this process. You can front load your carbs at the beginning of the week and taper off towards the end of the week, or you can deplete yourself completely at the beginning of the week and then load them towards the end of the week as you're getting ready for show day. Front load your carbs if you're worried about possibly overdoing it, so that you give yourself a couple days of buffer just in case you have too much. Personally, I know my body quite well, and if you're in the same boat, then I suggest you backload your carbs at the end of the week. So what does that look like? Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday should be used for depletion, meaning you bring your carbs down to 50 to 100 grams per day total. Then on Thursday, you want to increase them slightly, perhaps back to where they were originally. And then Friday is when things get fun. I found for me personally, one day of carb loading is sufficient. However, some people might need to start this process a little bit earlier on Thursday and increase their carbs slightly higher than what I mentioned. On Friday, I will eat 2 to 3 times my normal amount of carbs while keeping my protein and my fats steady. I'm not eating a bunch of vegetables. I'm not eating a bunch of foods that are high in fiber and are gonna sit in my stomach for a long time. I'm eating mostly slow digesting carbs like rice, but again, I'm staying away from anything that's high in fiber. Friday night is when I'll start introducing some fast-acting carbs, aka sugar. Let's take a brief second to talk about water and sodium. You hear all this stuff about bodybuilders restricting themselves from water and salt leading up to the show, and you might be wondering, what role does this play for me? Let me tell you something. Those guys are on steroids. When you're on steroids, it's necessary to consider all of these finer details because the compounds you're taking cause your body to hold on to extra water. And this is why it's so important to make a video like this, especially for naturals. As a natural, you don't need to adjust your water and your sodium intake nearly as much as someone else. And as a natural in general, the less adjustments you make to your routine in peak week, the better. If you're not already lean enough going into peak week, then no amount of water, sodium, or carb manipulation is going to change that. Peak week is designed to time your body to look its absolute best on show day, which if you've done things right, then you're pretty much already at that point. What I'm trying to say is don't worry too much about your water and your salt during your peak week. Personally, I did not change anything about my water and sodium intake up until the day of the show. You've started loading your carbs the day before and you go to sleep, everything's great, you wake up and you're feeling great. On the morning of the show, you should have one solid meal about 3 to 4 hours before stepping on stage. You want this meal to be well balanced, but not too much of anything, especially considering you've already started carbing up the day before, and now you need to take it one small step at a time so that you can continually assess your physique as you go on throughout the day. For me, on the morning of my last show, I had 3 eggs and 3 ounces of lean ground beef. I added some salt to this meal. I had about a cup of water afterwards, and then I had a black coffee once I finished. This is somewhat of a bonus. I wasn't planning on really mentioning this, but black coffee has been shown to dehydrate your body, which can help dry you out. So I had that coffee and then I cut my intake completely. No food, no water until I'm backstage pumping up. At this point, you should feel like you're itching for a pump. You've been loading your carbs after depleting yourself early on. You've got sufficient water and sodium in your system. Your body should feel like it is just waiting to do a single rep of anything so that it can get a pump. That's how you know you've nailed your peak week. Now you're backstage, you want to start consuming fast-acting carbs about 30 minutes to an hour before stepping on stage. About an hour or so, you might want to be having a rice cake or 2, and then 30 minutes before stepping on stage, right before you're about to start pumping up, this is when you pull out your secret weapon. I'm talking about honey. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Honey is my super secret, especially special pump up product to help me get the nastiest pump anywhere. On stage, off stage, in the gym, on a leg day, doesn't matter. Honey is your best friend. Have yourself a good 2 tablespoons, which amounts to roughly 40 grams of carbs. You can also drizzle it over a rice cake and eat it like that. After every serving, you want to give yourself at least 5 to 10 minutes to, again, assess your physique and see how you feel. You should feel insane. As you're pumping up, you should be able to tell whether or not you've had enough or if you need a little bit more, based on how great of a pump you're getting. Just like that, you're ready to step on stage in the best shape of your life due to all your hard work, your dedication, and you nailing your peak week. That's how it's done, ladies and gentlemen. I wish you the best. If you have any questions about this process or anything regarding your prep, please drop it in the comments and maybe I'll make a video about it. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your support and I'll see you in the next one. Shoot for the stars.